Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambrot Weber, and we're very privileged today to have as our guest Kevin Annett, who is the North American Field Secretary for the International Common Law Court of Justice in Brussels. Welcome, Kevin.
Hello, Alfred.
You know, uh, the International Common Law Court of Justice released some shocking testimony this past week about child murders in the Netherlands. And I wondered if you could give us more details on that, who the witness was, and what the gist of the testimony was, and importantly, what the common law court, how the common law court plans to act on this, who the defendants will be, and what the outlook is on this.
Definitely. Well, as people can see at itccs.org, uh, there's one of the key testimonies in the latest trial against Jorge Bogaglio and the others who were named in child trafficking. This is some of the evidence that is gradually being released. It couldn't be at the time, because we had to maintain the security of the witnesses and that. Some of the other key people were like the civil servant from Argentina who gave the testimony about Jorge Bergoglio trafficking the kids in Argentina. But Anne-Marie von Billenberg first contacted us back in the spring. I conducted this, what is up now at itccs.org is the first of 4 statements she made to the court. This was recorded in June over Skype. It's quite astounding. I mean, I had spoken to this woman before, but she never went into the detail that she did in this interview. Essentially, what she's saying here is that as her husband was a member of Drangheta, the criminal body, that uses these child sacrificial cults as a form of political blackmail against various people in the political establishment, wealthy people in that. She was taken to these rituals. She referred to this one in the first statement at a place in Holland. And these children were obtained through the Child Protection Services, the juvenile detention centers rather, in Holland. They were taken to a town called Zwolle, which is one of the places I actually visited a couple of years ago. And at Zwolle, according to Anne-Marie, these children were sacrificed in front of 50 people, including, and she has a whole list of names, which are quite amazing, not just George Soros, who's interesting, as people know, he's one of these multi-billionaires who's Hillary Clinton's main backer right now. He's personal friends with the wife of this Prince Friso, who was really at the center of this activity until he died suddenly in the hospital last year. His wife is named Mabel Smit, and she's friends with this George Soros. Anne-Marie claims that he saw both of them, and other people, including, this the head of all the judges in the Netherlands, a guy called Van den Epster, Dick Berlin, who's the head of the military in Holland, Mark Rutte, who is the president of the Netherlands. And he in fact was also named by Laurent Louis, the member of parliament, when he got basically thrown out of the parliament for naming these names as people involved in child trafficking. So these names keep coming up all the time by the different eyewitnesses. Essentially, Anne-Marie said these people took part in these rituals. They're protected by a lot of powerful people, including the government. And she described in great detail how this thing happened. So this is really more confirmation of what Toast Nienhuis and others have been telling us for some time.
But these don't seem to be isolated rituals. For example, things that the Queen of the Netherlands, she seems to be the primary force behind it from the testimony. But it's not just isolated to the Netherlands. I mean, if you look at the historical record, the UK Queen, Elizabeth Windsor, and the Dutch Queen were both instrumental in founding the Bilderbergers, and they're both involved in satanic rituals, as is the Ninth Circle at the Vatican, and they probably procure children from a common source.
Right. Well, we know that Tringheta, the criminal syndicate, you know, they're the mafia today. They do a lot of the arms dealing, the human trafficking in the world, especially in Europe. We know that they are really at the heart of a lot of the supply end of things. The protection is provided by the government. As a matter of fact, Anne Marie said in her third statement to the court, she made a point of saying that when she saw the human hunting parties going on in the forest just outside Brussels in the year 2009, she said that the whole area was cordoned by Belgian soldiers. So, I mean, you know, this is definitely involving government institutionally, not just individuals within it, right? So definitely it's a systemic problem, just like we found with genocide here in Canada.
So, doesn't this tend to point to satanic networks in these monarchies linked to the Vatican? I mean, just judging from the evidence that has come forward from the International Common Law Court of Justice so far, because we've linked the two popes, Ratzinger and Pope Francis, to satanic rituals. We've linked the Queen of England, Elizabeth Windsor, to satanic rituals, and now we're linking the Dutch Queen to satanic rituals. Those have got to be internationally connected.
Well, it's also that's right. The jigsaw puzzle is coming together, Alfred. The other connection here that we can talk about today is Ireland, of course, where the Ninth Circle is definitely responsible for the ritual slaying of those 800 little skeletons they found in the cistern at Tuam, and the stepping down of the cardinal in Ireland when that all came out. I mean, this is all coming together. But what interesting link, before we get onto that, one of the things we found out through documents supplied by others in Holland was during World War II, the Dutch royal family, Beatrix's mom, Queen Wilhelmina, was invited by the Canadian government to come over, and they had sanctuary here in Canada during the war. One of the things we discovered is while they were in Canada, and I've got the document showing this, it's an order in council from 1942 in Ottawa, absolving the Dutch royal family from any jurisdiction, legal jurisdiction, while in Canada. So in other words, they were under no legal authority in Canada. They were above the Canadian law. At that same time, there were testimonies about Prince Bernhard and others showing up at Indian residential schools, including the one in Brantford, where there was definitely ritual slaying going on, the Mohawk school run by the Church of England. Now, it's not too much of a stretch there to see that these satanic rituals are going on both sides of the Atlantic. They're legally protecting the Dutch royal family while they're in Canada so they can do these sick things. And then after the war, of course, with all the paperclip Nazi doctors coming over, these residential schools were a big location for a lot of these rituals as well as experiments. So, that's something we learned over 20 years doing the residential school research, but now it's being corroborated from Europe, from information at that end as well.
So are these people like vampires that they come over here to Canada during the war and they just had to go over to Brantford and commit these ritual sacrifices? Is that what they are? I mean, what's going on here?
I would say that's a pretty fair judgment. I think that they almost require this like their sustenance. I don't think it's just some psychological aberration. I think it's a form of energy vampirism, definitely feeding off the innocent. Why else would it be occurring on such a massive scale? Why would it be so institutionally protected? Why would it be so consistent? And the response in every country is the same. There's the same process of official cover-up and denial. Like, for example, right now, this cistern in Tuam, Ireland, that's being exposed. We know they were ritually dismembered. That's what sources in the Gardaí, the Irish police, have told us. We know that the pattern now of cover-up is identical to what went on in Canada. The Irish government and the Catholic Church are both saying, yeah, we're really sorry for what happened. We can't tell you the details. We're investigating ourselves, just like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission did here in Canada with the churches and government. And we're going to erect a monument for these poor children, but nobody's responsible. I mean, that's the pattern on both sides of the ocean, and it's what happens when the guilty have to cover up their crime.
Now, just looking at this testimony, which by its terms implicates the Dutch monarchy, and we have as well the implication of the Belgian monarchy, which is located in the very venue, the headquarters of the International Common Law Court of Justice, where a key supporter of the court, former MP Laurent Louis, was subjected to unlawful prosecution for merely bringing these facts to the floor of Parliament there. So, does this mean that the International Common Law Court of Justice will be initiating prosecution of the both the sitting monarchs and high governmental officials and others, both in the Netherlands and also in Belgium?
Well, my understanding, and of course, I'm going over to Europe in October to be on the ground with a lot of these folks. Prior to that, I'm starting this week to take a trip through Canada and the U.S. to meet with all the Republic and common law groups. But the thing that I understand is that because this is so huge, the court doesn't want to focus just on the figureheads anymore. They want to go after the funders. They want to go after the criminal bodies providing the bodies, the children. They want to go after the banks that are funding this thing, that are laundering the drug money for Drangheta and others, like Bank of America, JP Morgan, the others. We're looking at a whole inquiry, and there was, in fact, a commission of inquiry set up out of this latest court case. We need this on-the-grounds commission that's going to dig up all of the links. It's like any kind of criminal investigation. You go after every level of it, not just the figureheads, not just the little fish on the ground. And that's my understanding of what they're doing. It's going to take a lot more work, a lot more money and support, but that's beginning to trickle in. What happened to Montreal in Canada, where a team went over there and actually stopped one of the Ninth Circle rituals on August 15th. It shows you the extent to which other groups are beginning to get involved. And some of the invitations I've been getting to speak in Europe now are from a higher level, government people, not just human rights groups and individuals on the ground.
Right, right. So we can expect some announcements coming out this fall, or will this be at the commission level, more at the investigative level, leading to prosecutions, do you think?
You see, of course, prosecution is just the first step. Just like at one point, it's like there's an expanding perspective on this. At one point, we were simply documenting the crime. Then we began prosecuting, and now the enforcement, the stopping of the crime is the key. So it won't just be the convening of other cases, although that'll happen for sure. It'll be the establishing of these security forces, these direct action units, to go in and stop them, stop the rituals, arrest those involved, save the children's lives. This is really the focus right now. So there isn't just the investigation going on, there's training programs going on. In Canada, in the US, in England, and across Europe, and in Australia, there are active training programs where we're bringing in trained security personnel, sheriffs, and others to train groups to go in and stop these rituals. So that really is more and more the thrust, and that's what we're hearing from people on the ground. What can we do to stop this? Not simply learn about it, right?
Right, right. But at the same time, the prosecution of Elizabeth Windsor, the sitting monarch, and the prosecution of the two popes has been extremely important.
Yep.
Because the prosecution and then verdicts have shown that you have a reasonable tribunal using due process has come to a decision that beyond a reasonable doubt these individuals have committed acts that amount to genocide, acts that amount to crimes against humanity, and that demand punishment. Now, there is the enforcement phase, but now public opinion and natural justice has been informed.
You're right.
Now, the monarchies of the Netherlands and of Belgium are notoriously, it's commonly known how they are centers of pedophilia, they are centers of Satanism, they are, I mean, you yourself know that just from the evidence that has been gathered. So I would think that a prosecution at that level would be very salutary.
Absolutely. And, I didn't mean to de-emphasize that at all. It's the cornerstone of what we're all doing right now. And it'll be the basis for other court actions in other countries. We've already had indications that courts in England, believe it or not, in the Netherlands and other places are looking at the evidence, and there's public prosecutors there that are considering their own actions. You notice the arrest rate has increased in England and other countries where these stories of child rapists, not just individuals, but whole networks of child trafficking. The case in Rotherham in northern England, which has been all over the British newspapers, 1,400 children trafficked, and when the fathers went down to try to rescue these kids, the police arrested them, stopped them from doing it. I mean, all of this is beginning to come out now, even in the corporate media, and it's an indication of, the legitimacy that happens when we adjudicate these matters, when we show the hard evidence, and that'll continue. If anything, it'll increase. So that, definitely is the case. The other end of that, of course, is the actual disestablishing of these institutions. And we have a movement begun in England now to do what we're doing in Canada with the Republic of Canada. There's an office that's opening in London where they're going to try to bring together all the common law groups in England under an umbrella of a move to really restore what had happened in 1649 with the creation of the Republic in England, revive those laws, making it a crime for the monarchy to exist, reestablish the Republican Constitution from the 17th century. There's really an attempt to do that now and to create that framework for all the common law groups. So that's part of the political end of what we're talking about, actually putting an end to these institutions.
Right. Could you tell us more about the Republican initiative in England?
Well, it came out of actually from England itself. There's several groups in England, the British Constitution Group, and even some members of Parliament who have talked about, the time for the monarchy is over. Even in England, almost majority people want it to end, despite all the fanfare you always see in the media there. And so what happened was, because of really the successes of some of the common law groups in England, in serving the stand-down orders against the British, the Crown officials, and that it was decided that some of the people from the Brussels group, the ITCCS, and some of our people in Canada have agreed to go over there, set up an office, and to start to organize actual groups in different cities to bring about this republic. To draft up, just like what's happened in Canada, draft up a proclamation of independence. They're looking in May 1st, 2015, next year, as a time to release that. And to give it, again, provide a constitutional basis for this, because as people know, the Crown is not just a criminal body, it's a fraudulent one. It's not operating according to the rule of law. It actually, the Crown was restored by a military coup in 1660 against the wishes of Parliament and the High Court in London. So it's really an illegitimate body and has been since 1660. All of the laws since then, including here in Canada, are null and void, even from that end, not even talking about the crimes of genocide and everything else we've documented. So, I mean, all of that is very exciting. It's giving people a sense that, we're achieving something positive now. We're creating something. We're not just condemning the crimes, putting the criminals on trial. We're creating something to replace it.
Right. And even we've been in touch with a number of the people who are now active in Scotland,
Right.
For the vote next Thursday on September 18th, to vote yes, to establish a republic in Scotland. It seems that it's nip and tuck up there, but it would seem that either which way that the vote goes, it's drawing upon a tremendous popular sentiment to disestablish the monarchy. And if you have an independent Scotland, well, that would go further toward empowering the movement for a Republic of England to the
Right.
south of the border. Wouldn't you say? Could you comment on that?
Oh, very much. As a matter of fact, it's really interesting, Alfred, the way history is repeating itself here, because when the Puritans launched, well, actually, it was the king that launched the Civil War against his own people. But in 1649, when the Republic was proclaimed, the reason that happened is because years earlier, the Scots had made a deal with Parliament, saying, "We'll fight against the king if you bring about a Presbyterian religion in England to replace Anglicanism." The Parliament agreed, and so the Scots eventually went to war, and they were the ones who captured Charles I and handed him over for trial. Now, we were seeing the same wave coming out of Scotland. That is definitely going to give impetus to this move in England to restore the Republic. And as a matter of fact, we've had, in the last little while, a lot of inquiries coming from Scotland, along those lines. So, I think it's interesting the way history comes around in a circle like that.
Right, right. So this is something that's quite current and is very important to watch, and I imagine will be one of your that actions will be taken in the wake of the Scottish vote. Either way, it seems that the Republic of England will be moving forward, because either way of which way the Scottish vote goes, there still is a substantial support in England for a republic, and certainly in Scotland.
Oh, yes. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting that a few months ago, one of the Scottish National Party spokespeople said that up until then, they had just talked about, sovereignty without necessarily severing ties with the monarchy. They'd be part of the Commonwealth. But recently, they've been saying, no, outright republic. No more ties with the crown at all. Complete disaffiliation. So I think that's a sign of what you're talking about, and the successes we've had in exposing the crimes and putting Elizabeth Windsor in trial, saying these crown officials have no more authority because their boss is a crook and a murderer.
Right, right. Now, just turning a moment over to Ireland, could you talk about some of the developments there over the past week or so?
Well, the big news, of course, was Cardinal Sean Brady finally steps down. He was removed from Rome, and not very pleased with it. He wanted to hold on, but they clearly saw that they had to get him out of there for a number of reasons. He was personally implicated when he was on just last week on a radio show in Ireland. We brought out the fact that a boy called Brendan Boyle, when he was 11, was silenced by Cardinal Sean Brady when he was a priest. He was ordered to sign a statement when he was 11 years old saying he had never been raped by this other priest. So for years, Sean Brady's been doing that, silencing children about how they've been raped. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as cardinal, he personally intervened to try to pay off members of the Dáil, the Irish Parliament, to stop them from investigating the mass graves at Tuam, which is where these 800 babies were found, in the West Country in Galway. He intervened to try to stop the police investigation. He's very implicated in this, and we believe that's because he's actually tied to the Ninth Circle sacrifices that went on there. We know that according to the document that, issued, like it's now on the court record in Brussels, requiring top cardinals and popes to be part of these Ninth Circle rituals, it's not too much of a stretch to say, yeah, Sean Brady is implicated in that as well. He's been so vehement in trying to stop any investigation into those dismembered little skeletons in Tuam. So in response, there's a group that's formed with our help in Galway. It's including based right in the town of Tuam. And by the way, that's the Gaelic pronunciation. It's spelled Tuam, but Tuam, in case you were wondering what that meant. And there's also groups in Galway, in Dublin, in Cork, all over Ireland that are organizing now to help this investigation. So that's going to be the focus right now in Ireland for the work. But there's all sorts of other stuff happening, concurrent with that.
Right, right. Now you're currently here in Nanaimo, BC, but as I understand it, you're now taking off on a trip through various places. Could you tell us more about that?
Well, it's all related to what we've been talking about. The convention here in Canada to establish the Republic on October 31st. There's now 24 branches of the movement across Canada. I've got to visit every one of them, or most of the big ones, to help organize that, starting right here in BC and working east. Also going down to the States to work with the Restore the Republic movement there, which is very active, even more, of course, than in Canada. And then from there over to Europe. Now, the European leg is very interesting, starting in October, because I'll be going to Brussels, working with more eyewitnesses who've come forward now about the Ninth Circle activities, going to Rome to meet with some of these sources. Now, these are sources not only in the Vatican, but in some of the political parties in Italy who have come out now. We mentioned a while ago how two of these parties, the Radical Party and the Democratic Party, have talked openly now about attempting to revoke the Lateran Treaty. Now, that is going to be an enormous shockwave. You'll see the whole thing come down then, because then the Italian government won't be obligated to protect the Vatican anymore. And there won't be any place for these people to hide, these criminal popes. So that's a very important development. I've been asked to come into Eastern Europe, down through Spain. It's like that's going to be a big part of my October, is doing all of that. So, we're really riding a wave on this, Alfred, and there's going to be a lot more information on the ground. I hope to meet with Laurent Louis and find ways, to support him as well, and some of our other friends in Brussels.
Good, good. So there are a lot of people who I think would like to become involved in the work of the Common Law Court, or in establishing common law courts in their areas, or other common law communities and organizations in their areas. Could you tell them how they can get more information, how they can do this, and sort of give us a picture of what the community is like worldwide now?
Well, there's at last count, there's close to 1,000 active members. The main countries are the English-speaking ones that had a tradition of common law: England, Ireland, Canada, the U.S., Australia, and New Zealand. That's where the bulk of the members are. But we're getting interest from all over. To give you an example, the donations that come into the head office in Brussels are coming now from dozens of countries. I mean, they're getting them from Tanzania, from Japan, from every continent on the planet. People are aware of this all over the world. There's groups in Pakistan and Egypt that are trying to learn about the common law to establish courts there that'll put the government on trial for human rights atrocities. All over the U.S., of course, now they're in practically every state. And there's now citizen grand juries being convened on all sorts of issues involving the government and that. So the main way people can get involved is go to our website, itccs.org, read the manual there, get some ideas, how to apply that, how to set up a court to your own conditions and the issues you're concerned about. But also write to the central office, itccscentral@gmail.com. That's the best way to be involved. But like I say, the key, as the people in England have shown, the key is to take the ball and run with it, not to wait for central directives, but start arresting these known child raping priests, banishing them from your communities, telling the police to stand down, telling the judges to stand down from their oaths to the crown. And that starts a momentum. In these little villages all over England, these cops are reading these stand down orders and are thinking about it. That's how revolutions begin. You start educating the people in the system. One day they'll come over to us. And that's a very important part, the education as well as the direct action.
Right, right. So in our last update, you were telling us that the impetus now will be not only we've had the investigations and prosecutions going toward these networks in the churches in the Vatican, toward the monarchies, the British monarchy, and now the Dutch monarchy, and the Belgian monarchy, But now in the corporate area, with Cargill, largest private corporation in the world in terms of revenue, and other corporations that are actually satanic and hold satanic sacrifices at their corporate headquarters and are involved in satanic child sacrifices around the world. And that will be opening up. Are there any updates on that, or is that going forward as planned?
Yeah, there's a group in Minneapolis that's convening to indict Cargill. They're going to be holding protests right at the corporate headquarters in Wayzata, Minnesota. For Canadians, people should know that a real inquiry is beginning into Camco uranium. Camco is provided depleted uranium for the U.S. military. It's destroyed whole areas of northern Saskatchewan, which are uninhabitable now. They're like the Black Hills in South Dakota, where Camco was also active in the uranium mining there. The Cree and the Lakota are both suffering from it. And there's inquiry forming into that and to the ties between Camco and the Liberal and Conservative parties. And Camco as well have been implicated in the same kind of ritual killings of the Cree people. One of our sources in New York said that as a child she was taken to a Cree Indian reservation in northern Saskatchewan where the Cree were being forced to give up their land because their children were kidnapped and being threatened and in fact and sometimes killed ritually. So this is beginning to overlap in a lot of the stuff we've been learning about the residential school genocide here in Canada. And, that's an example of what's going to be investigated under the auspices of the new Republic of Kanata, because, again, it will have the authority to establish these common law courts, to disestablish the Crown authority in that. So, this is what we're working on in this end as well.
Right. So, finally, do you have any thoughts that you'd like to leave our viewers with in this time that it looks like the ITCCS and the common law movement is really starting to expand and to bring back the rule of natural law, of common law, to vast swaths of the planet that have grown lawless?
Exactly. Well, it shows the power of persistence. And, when truth is on your side, you're unbeatable. We went through a period of years where there were just a few of us operating. Now that more are coming on board, the usual tactics of divide and conquer, of smear attacks, internet disinformation, they don't work anymore. In fact, they tend to strengthen us. I think that the elites, the opposition, they don't know what to do now because they know this is out so widely. We had 20,000 hits already in the last couple of days on the Anne-Marie van Billenberg testimony about the latest, the crimes in Belgium and Holland. This has achieved a critical mass and it's growing now. They can't stop it. So I'd say to people, now is the time to lose your fear. Now is the time to stop just talking about this issue, join the groups, join the direct action units, help us disestablish these Crown and Vatican authorities, establish these new republics, and make it happen in your own community. That's where we build our strength. So, again, just get on board, folks. This is the time now.
Good. Well, we've come to the end of this segment, and we certainly want to thank you for your time in joining us today and giving us this update. And we look forward to your updates as events develop, Kevin.
Thank you, Alfred, and definitely before October rolls around, we'll talk to you again to tell you what's coming up that month in Europe especially. Thanks, Alfred.
Excellent. Thank you very much.